Over the past decade, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has reported that retaliation is the most common issue alleged by federal employees and the most common discrimination finding in federal sector cases. In fact, retaliation has been the most frequently alleged basis of discrimination in the federal sector since fiscal year 2008. In addition, the number of discrimination findings based on an EEO retaliation claim has outpaced other bases of discrimination. In this video, the EEOC will explain what retaliation is, why it matters, and why managers retaliate, and what can be done to remedy each situation. Although this presentation is based on the EEOC's case files affecting the federal workplace and cites only federal law, many of these examples may be used as a guide for individual HR departments. Please consult state and local laws and regulations in your area for specific language concerning each EEO and civil rights case you handle.
All of the laws EEOC enforces make it illegal to fire, demote, harass, or otherwise retaliate against people, applicants, or employees because they initiated the complaint process, because they complained to their employer or other covered entity about discrimination on the job, or because they participated in an employment discrimination proceeding. For example, it is illegal for an employer to refuse to promote an employee because he or she initiated the complaint process, even if EEOC later determined no discrimination occurred. The law forbids retaliation when it comes to any aspect of employment, including hiring, firing, pay, job assignments, promotions, layoff, training, fringe benefits, and any other term or condition of employment. If retaliation for such activities were permitted, it would have a chilling effect upon the willingness of individuals to speak out against employment discrimination or to participate in the EEOC's administrative process or other employment discrimination proceedings. Title VII depends for its enforcement on the willingness of employees to file complaints and be witnesses in the EEO process. Interpreting the anti-retaliation provision to provide broad protection from retaliation helps assure the cooperation upon which accomplishment of the Act's primary objective depends.
It is obvious that interpersonal conflicts can potentially implicate a legal process. This is particularly apparent with retaliation law because the legal standard requires an examination of the behavior after the allegation. The standard for proving a retaliation claim requires showing that the manager's action might deter a reasonable person from opposing discrimination or participating in the EEOC complaint process.
In a recent case, an employee claimed that she was discriminated against during the promotion interview process. 2 of the 3 interview panelists were managers involved in current or previous EEO complaints by the employee, and one of the panelists attempted to influence the selection process by asking a question that paralleled a previous conflict between the panelist and the employee. A witness reported that he had heard the manager make the statement, "I don't get mad, I get even," in reference to the employees who make discrimination complaints. EEOC found that the selection process was tainted by retaliatory conduct and ordered the agency to promote the employee. In another example, EEOC found retaliation partly based on the fact that the employee was refused use of a government vehicle. In this case, the manager's reaction to the employee's EEO complaint was to take away a perk, the use of the government car, while another coworker was allowed continued use of the vehicle. While the manager had the discretion to allocate the use of the vehicle and other perks, retaliation can be established if it is shown to be more likely than not that the discretionary decision was based upon a retaliatory motive. In a final example, EEOC found that management was openly hostile towards an employee's protected EEO activity. Specifically, the employee's manager described the employee's discrimination allegations as unprofessional, and the higher-level manager found them highly offensive and bad for morale. During the subsequent EEO proceeding, co-workers revealed an overall feeling of distrust and concern about the employee after the initial complaint. EEOC noted that the first-level manager saw this growing tension but failed to ensure that co-workers understood and respected the employee's right to file a complaint.
Unlike the legal definition of retaliation, behavioral science focuses on retaliation as an intra- and interpersonal experience that encompasses subjective definitions of harm and offense, with the act of retaliation being a potential mechanism for addressing transgression.
The act of retaliation is equivalent to revenge, where a person perceives unfair treatment and attempts to restore equilibrium by taking the matter into his or her own hands. Research has consistently demonstrated that the desire for retaliation is common among experiencing an offensive interpersonal encounter, particularly if the encounter threatens one's self-image. Humans are unique in our ability to weigh consequences and make decisions based on what is most beneficial within a given socio-cultural context. In this respect, we have the ability to override more basic inclinations and behave based on what is socially or legally acceptable. Cognitive, emotional, and social processes can override instinct and guide behavioral choices. Ultimately, the decision to retaliate is a consequence of an interaction of these factors. The process of retaliation begins with a perceived offense, such as initiating a discrimination claim. If those accused sincerely believe that they have done nothing wrong, or if they believe their offensive behavior was somehow justified, they may begin to ruminate and desire retaliation. In this regard, retaliation is a coping mechanism, a way of alleviating the psychological discomfort associated with perceived injustice.
As stated earlier, we have the ability to override the basic instinct to retaliate if the appropriate social and legal consequences are readily apparent. Organizations must recognize both the potential for retaliation and the interaction of psychological and organizational characteristics that contribute to the likelihood of retaliation. Several factors ultimately affect whether a manager will engage in retaliation. These include the manager's psychological traits, perceptions of the organizational culture, and organizational opportunities.
Researchers have also concluded that people seek retaliation when they feel the workplace is not fair and that they cannot depend on formal channels for fair or just treatment. Individuals will also retaliate if they perceive the perpetrator as behaving in a way that is intentionally malicious. Individuals are also more likely to retaliate if the accusation is very serious. The accusation will negatively impact future relationships with others at work. The accused feels that he or she is being judged. The accused believes that his or her job is in jeopardy, and/or there is reason to believe that the accusation will harm perceived employability. Organizational structures also impact potential retaliation. Rigid bureaucratic structures promote retaliatory behavior among managers. Organizations that do not foster a procedurally just climate also encourage retaliation. Organizations that foster a climate of aggression and bullying are more likely to have managers who abuse power and retaliate when claims are made. Other organizational factors that influence retaliation are the following: a lack of administrative policies discouraging retaliation, an authoritarian management culture, overly hierarchical organizations where rank or organizational level is prized, high levels of task-related conflicts, reward systems and structures that promote competition, and the ability of the accused to isolate the accuser.
While it may be impossible not to take an EEO allegation personally, managers should take a step back to consider their reactions in these situations. Retaliation may be lessened where the organization has made clear that discriminatory and retaliatory behavior will have appropriate consequences. It is also important for employers to help their managers understand the behaviors associated with retaliation by incorporating information into organizational training.
Training efforts should be organic to the agency's culture with a particular focus on management training. Often, managers are not prepared for the inevitable conflicts associated with managing human relations within the work setting. These preventative training efforts will assist in the reduction of both EEO and non-EEO complaints, such as grievances and whistleblower reports. To further prevent retaliation, managers should take the following actions. Avoid publicly discussing the EEO allegation outside of the EEO process. Do not share information about the EEO activity with any other managers or subordinates. Be mindful not to isolate the complainant. Avoid reactive behaviors such as denying the employee information, equipment, or benefits provided to others performing similar duties. Do not interfere with the EEO process. Provide clear and accurate information to the EEO staff, EEO investigator, or judge, and do not threaten the employee, witnesses, or anyone involved in the processing of a complaint.
Finally, EEO and civil rights programs within the agency should explore ways to provide information to managers at the outset of the complaint process. This information should acknowledge the potential emotional response involved with being accused of a discriminatory action, as well as the problematic implications of seeking to avenge any perceived offense. By acknowledging the potential negative reactions managers may experience when faced with a discrimination allegation, and reviewing examples of both constructive and problematic responses, these education efforts should help managers to focus on the continued work interaction and relationship with employees. Thank you for watching.
For more information, go to the link shown on your screen, or visit EEOC.gov and search the keyword retaliation.